This episode is brought to you by the Western Outdoor News Strike King Big Bass Challenge. Held on May 22nd, 2021, out of Russo's Marina on the California Delta, it's a guaranteed $7,500 total cash payout based on a 100 angler field. As an added bonus, the first 100 anglers registered gets a free Lose fishing rod. We have about 50 left and counting, so head over to wonews.com under the Tournaments tab to sign up today. Today on the show, we have a Eastern Sierra update ahead of the opener, a call-in report from Seaforth Landing in San Diego, and Cecil Hoge from Panther, Martin, and Sea Eagle Boats. Let's start the show. So let's get straight to it. You might have seen it in the latest issue of Western Outdoor News or seen the photos on the Western Outdoor News Instagram or Facebook pages, but the Polaris Supreme out of San Diego has seen some recent bluefin success. But don't just take it from me.
Yeah, this is Kirk from Seaforth Sport Fishing, just calling in here. We had the Polaris Supreme return yesterday morning. They had 24 passengers. They had 24 nice bluefin up to about 90 pounds. The bulk of that fish was 30 to 50 pounds there. Recommended tackle was 30 to 50 pound and small flat falls. We also had the San Diego out today, back down to the Coronado Islands. They had a better day than the last few. Islands had some yellowtail good bite. They had 27 for their trip today. If you do have any questions, we do have trips leaving this weekend, Friday night. The Polaris Supreme is a day and a half. We also have the Tribute and Pacifica, both day and a half, all targeting that bluefin there, guys. So give us a call at 619-224-3383 or visit us online at Seaforth Landing to make your reservations.
Small flat falls seem to be working for those bluefin right now. A big thank you to Kurt for calling in and leaving that update on our voicemail box. And if you have a quick report like that you'd like to share, please give us a call and leave a voicemail after the beep at 702-850-4966. With the Eastern Sierra opener rapidly approaching at the end of April, we spoke with Jeff Simpson of Mono County Tourism to give us the full rundown of what anglers can expect in the Eastern Sierra for the opener.
Yeah, a lot of changes this year. Not only with COVID, but as we know, there's been a statewide fishing regulation change, some stocking issues with CDFW. We'll be continuing to do our stocking this year, and water levels are always a topic. Whether we have too much water or not enough water, it's looking like we're going to be about average this year. But lots I think to go over and lots of changes for this upcoming season.
Normally, I always talk to you at the show to get my information on the Sierra preview stuff, and you always touch on, I don't know if you tell me a dollar, I can't remember if you tell me a dollar amount or a poundage of what you're budgeted for and where those premium Oregon fish are going to be stocked. Can you touch on that for us?
Yeah, so we always, stock about the same dollar amount. Here at the county, in Mono County, we have $100,000 that we stock about 18 different destinations with. That equates to about 18,000 pounds of fish from Desert Springs up there in Oregon. This year we're going to buy mixed load sizes, so we'll have some kind of 1 pound fish, but we'll also have those trophy, 3 to 5 pound range fish. So it'll be kind of a mixed load outside of the rivers and streams. We're going to put 1 pounders in there. It's hard for those big guys to kind of swim,
right.
In those more shallow waters. So $100,000 for myself and 18 bodies of water. And then the town of Mammoth Lakes also spends an additional $100,000 just on the Mammoth Lakes Basin. That's Mary, Mammy, Twin, and George. And so additional 18,000 pounds will be going in just the Lakes Basin. You add that up, it's 24 different bodies of water, $200,000 worth of fish coming down from Oregon throughout the season.
There's also that Bridgeport Fisheries Enhancement Foundation that adds its own closer to your neck of the woods around Bridgeport too, on top of all that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's just the county and the town stocking. There are many, many different nonprofit organizations, private marina operators, even just citizens that want to put more fish in their favorite body of water. There are a lot of other loads coming down from all of those entities BFEF, or the Bridgeport Fish Enhancement Foundation, is probably the number one nonprofit and the number one buyer of fish outside of the government entities. They primarily stock the Bridgeport area, so places like Bridgeport Reservoir, Upper and Lower Twin Lakes, Robinson Creek, Big and Little Virginia Lakes, and then sometimes also the West Walker River. The majority of their funds kind of stays local with that. They also do a nice little tournament at the end of June. I think it's the last Saturday in June on Bridgeport Reservoir there to raise funds to stock more fish. So yeah, a lot of other entities stocking outside of the county and town.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that because I know there's, you mentioned your budget or the Mona County budget, and Mammoth Lakes on its own has its own $100,000 budget for stocking, but then there's also that foundation, and I also believe like Convict Lake pays for some of its own fish from the Desert Springs on down the line, and I think there's even some going on down in Bishop.
Oh yeah, lots going on just about everywhere. Convict Lake is one of the biggest private marina operators that buys. Silver Lake Resort also does a ton. Marina purchases a lot. And then, yeah, moving down further south on 395, the Bishop Chamber of Commerce, Sabrina, North Lake, South Lake, I know have their own kind of entities, and they purchase their fish from Wright's Rainbows out of Idaho. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of stocking going on behind the scenes. Regardless of you're catching fish or not, we keep those lakes and streams very full of fish.
It was pretty cool to have Desert Springs slide into that spot when, vacated when the Alpers Ranch shut down, because it's the same quality of fish, I think, from what I've seen.
Technically it's the same fish. I think
right.
Desert Springs has, provided the fingerlings to the Alpers Ranch or Conway Ranch for many, many, many years. So they've been involved with the Eastern Sierra and fish rearing for many years, and they're a great partner. Ethan up there at Desert Springs always works with us, makes sure we have top priority on the best fish, whether we want the 8-pounders like we did one year, the 3 to 5 pound, the 1 pound, or even just, some small catchable size fish to fill in the gaps with CDFW. They're fantastic people, a fantastic organization, and they provide quality fish.
So speaking of CDFW and new trout regulations up there in Mono County, you mentioned over email that there's a ton of new open areas. Can you open up about some of those open areas?
It's quite confusing, even though it was a simplification, regulation simplification, I think is how they phrased it. For us, there's not much change for some of kind of, I would say, your favorite front country lake destinations. I've tried to frame this up the easiest way possible for everyone to understand. And we've kind of put a PDF together on our website and our social media of all, kind of the most fished areas in Mono County and what the regulations are going to be moving forward. But I think the easiest explanation that I've heard is that all lakes and streams will be open year-round. Streams being catch and release barbless artificial flies and lures only from November 16th to the last Friday in April, and then obviously a 5-bag limit with bait during the traditional Fishmas season, with the exception of 60 kind of special regulations. And the majority of those special regulation areas are the lakes that we all know that are front country, that are on 395, that are pretty much just still open during the Fishmas season, last Saturday in April through November 15th, being closed in the winter. There are some tweaks to that with places like Crowley Lake, but for the most part, the things that are open now that traditionally wouldn't be are the backcountry hiking lakes, which are obviously very snow impacted right now. But the streams are what are open right now. So if you look just kind of like in the Bridgeport area, places like Robinson Creek, Green Creek, Virginia Creek, the West Walker, Little Walker River, Pickle Meadows, some of these areas that may have been closed in the winter in the past are now open for catch and release fishing. So I've been working with a few partners, specifically the Twin Lakes Trout Foundation out of Lower Twin Lakes in Bridgeport, and they're bringing fish up right now to stock to try and entice people to come up and start fishing before we get to that Fishmas date at the end of April.
Can you dwindle it down to one spot? I know it's probably hard to choose one. Can you choose one spot that you are the most excited to fish during the Sierra opener?
If you're talking about the opener on Fishmas, I have a family tradition with my dad. We've always gone out and fished Bridgeport Reservoir my entire life, so I will continue to do that with him. I'm excited. My sons are of age now where I think we can take them out and do some fishing with them. So this year, I think that will be something special for our family. But I think other than that, I'm excited to really just hit these streams that are open early. And I know it's there's no bait right now. It's artificial flies and lures only. But we have a little Tinkara fly rod, it doesn't have a reel. You just kind of do that, willow stick type casting, and you can get into those smaller streams and, to just hit those early when no one's around, when the fish haven't been seen any anglers yet this year. That's what we're excited to do, is just kind of get into those smaller stream areas with our fly rod.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Mike? One location that you would hit if you could only choose one, which one would it be?
I actually I've never been to this opener as a recreational angler. I've only been up there with Western Outdoor News in a working capacity, but I would probably get on a boat on Crowley. I mean, I see a ton of 3 to 6 pound cutthroat caught in nice browns right there at the opener, and maybe it's just because it's the area I cover for the opener. But back to what Jeff said about having some creeks open ahead of time, what it also does is if you're already up there for the opener, I'll be up there Thursday. I mean, it gives you something to do before everything else opens up. You can run out, like you said, and, swing some flies down a creek or, barbless jigs, or, you don't have to wait, until the floodgates open on Saturday. And I think that's pretty cool. I think that's one of the coolest part of the new regs. And really quick, just to touch on the regs themselves, it is overwhelming. If you look at that list on the DFW site, it's a huge list. But what I've found is if you just focus on the bodies of water that you or your friends and family normally hit, it's an alphabetical list. Just look for the places you fish instead of trying to digest the entire thing. And it makes it a lot easier to take in if you do it that way.
Any other questions, Mike, for Jeff?
I was going to ask him about the snowpack. That always affects the, not necessarily the opener, but the early spring fishing. And I know Jeff said it looks like it's going to be about average, but I always plan my trips around that. Like I know, if there's a ton of snow, Tioga Pass is going to, open later in the year. I know you can't say for sure because actually it could snow still before the opener. But if you had to estimate when some of the major passes would open, like Tioga Pass, what would you say, Jeff?
Yeah, this year we had some nice dialogue with the National Park Service and talking about their process, the hurdles they have on plowing that road and opening that road. We're hovering around 60 to 70% snowpack this year, so it's just slightly below average, I would say. And everyone, including Caltrans, which handles Sonora Pass and Monitor Pass, they all start plowing on April 1st. So, we're less than a week out for them to start plowing those passes. And it all depends on a lot of factors like down trees. How much wind did we have? Is there a lot of down trees in the middle?
Right.
I would say for Sonora and Monitor, you might see those open up pretty quick, maybe even before opener or just after. And then the National Park Service always tries to plan for opening before Memorial Day weekend. So with a below average snowpack this year, I would think that all 3 passes should 100% be open before Memorial Day weekend and before that big kind of summer rush.
One other variable here that we have to talk about is lodging and in terms of COVID.
We have had some additional restrictions on lodging in Mammoth Lakes. Those have been lifted. So we are open for lodging 100% at this point, no capacity issues, but just basic state and CDC guidelines with masking and distancing. And, we're just saying if you're feeling sick, stay home if you can for us. We are a tourism-dependent economy here. We love our tourists. We love them coming up, and all of our best friends are these tourists that come up and visit us these years. But with that, also brings the virus and more spread. And, we're just preaching safety and caution as much as possible, and to follow state guidelines.
We're looking forward to the season. Do you have any parting words or words of advice for anybody heading up there?
Everything is located on our website at monocounty.org. We have extensive fishing pages on there. We link to all the people in the Eastern Sierra that do fishing reports. So if you're going to Crowley, we link to all the guides down there and the marina operators, all the tackle shops that do reports. We link externally to all those. So you can find those all on our website at monocounty.org.
This year's Eastern Sierra opener will be a breath of fresh air as more and more COVID restrictions are lifted. I'm sure so many of you are looking to get out there. In case you can't make it up to the opener and you're looking to scratch that trout itch, Western Outdoor News is holding Troutcast at Lake Cuyamaca April 24th and 25th. We're raffling off 3 boats, a Klamath Advantage 16 with a Suzuki 20 outboard, and 2 Sea Eagle boats, the Fish Skiff 16 with a 6 horsepower Suzuki, and the Pack Fish 7. It's a packable one-man boat. It's pretty awesome. Raffling that off, you don't even need to catch a fish to win those boats, but it doesn't hurt, right? Time is running out, so sign up and mark your calendars for the Western Outdoor News Troutcast at Lake Cuyamaca, April 24th and 25th. Speaking of Sea Eagle, our next guest on the show is the legend himself, Cecil Hoge, president of Sea Eagle and Panther Martin. I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you have a tackle box full of Panther Martin lures. We talk with Cecil about the legacy of both of the companies, as well as the adventurous and colorful past of his family members. Let's jump over to our conversation with Cecil Hoge.
Panther Martin was a business that actually my father bought in 1961. There was a company that had a bunch of fishing tackle, and my father bought the company, and one of the products that was included was Panther Martin lures, which at the time were doing a tiny sales volume of about $8,000. In any case, my father bought this company, and we didn't really understand that we owned Panther Martin or that it was part of our product line until about 10 years later. We noticed that it had gone up to about $250,000 in sales, so it started to attract our attention. By that time, I had come into the business and was active in the business. There was a guy in the West who was one of our representatives, and he went around to every tiny tackle shop throughout the West, all through the mountain states, and called on all of these very, very small mom and pop tackle shops, kind of spread the religion of what a great fishing lure it was. Panther Martin is a unique design. It's the first inline spinner in the world. The shaft goes directly through the blade. The blade is convex concave, so that gives it a unique spinning action and also gives it extra vibration. And when it's combined with the heavyweight body, it creates a kind of beautiful casting lure that can be retrieved at slow or fast speeds and can be used as a kind of a countdown lure, and at different heights, fished very, very effectively. And it has a giant history of always catching fish. It's primarily known for trout, but it also catches salmon, steelhead. It also catches bass. We started with a pretty simple selection of lures, and then over time we expanded it to multiple sizes and colors. And over the years, we came to have what we presently have, which is about 1,200 different fishing lures with Panther Martin.
We had a couple episodes ago, we had Mike Lum from the Fred Hall shows, and he was talking about how tackle used to be everywhere. I mean, not even just in tackle shops, but what do you think happened culturally with fishing to where lures have kind of disappeared from shelves of just general stores to be more only inclusive in tackle shops?
Well, first of all, I would disagree a little bit with you because I think there's still many little mom and pop shops that are part garages, part general stores that still offer Panther Martins and still swear by them, and especially in resort areas in the mountains. However, I would say that general retailers, a lot of them just got out of fishing tackle altogether. So there were many kind of general interest stores, kind of like a Target, that used to carry fishing tackle, but ended up deciding that wasn't their main kind of goods to sell, and they just moved away from it. And I would say that the distribution of fishing lures is more restricted. I think in the West we sell through Bass Pro and Walmart's and Big Five and Sportsman's Warehouse, a number of different well-known kind of basic outline. But we also sell thousands, literally thousands of smaller mom and pop type stores. Some of them are gun stores during one part of the season and fishing stores in another part of the season. Some of them are garages. Some of them are like little general stores selling everything from gasoline to flannel shirts to birdseed and fishing tackle. But the industry has changed greatly over the years. In this last year, there's been a renaissance because of the coronavirus forced many people to seek activities that they wouldn't have to be exposed to a lot of people, and they chose fishing and boating as an attribute of that.
Take me back to 1968 when you decided to start Sea Eagle, and how did that decision come to mind? And tell me about the early days of Sea Eagle.
Well, first of all, it wasn't my decision. It was my father's decision. He decided to go into inflatable boats for a very strange reason, and that was he thought he could sell them by mail order. He was a mail order marketer, and even when we sold fishing tackle, he used many of his marketing techniques to sell our fishing lures. But in the case of our inflatable boats, he thought it could be packed in a box and shipped by UPS or by the mail in some cases, and it was practical to sell it through mail order. And that's how we started. I came into the business at the same time my father bought the business. And I would imagine that at my first few months in the business, I had the same belief that many people had at one time about inflatables, and that is that they're easy to puncture and not very practical. But I came to learn the characteristics of the crafts, and we started with inflatable kayaks and then expanded to motor mount boats, and then we expanded to supported fabric inflatables. There are two types of material that are used in inflatables: unsupported PVC, which can be, if it's good, very high quality molecular formulation made in a very heavy thickness, so it's very durable. It can also be terrible if it's made in a very flimsy thickness of not a good formulation. There's another quality of inflatables in that supported fabric where you have a woven fabric and you can have much higher air pressures and much stronger materials and much more rigid feeling boats. In the 60s, we started with simple unsupported PVC kayaks. By the 70s, we had moved into supported inflatable kayaks and then into inflatable sport boats, which take up to 30 horsepower engines. And then we developed a whole bunch of unique patented inflatable kayaks, inflatable canoes, and fishing boats. A wide variety of boats today, 27 different models, and includes everything from kayaks to sport runabouts to fishing boats to stand-up paddle boards.
Tell me about how the design process gets started. Are these written down on sketches? How do you get inspiration for some of these designs?
At first, I learned to write very crude and simple drawings with a pencil on a graph pad, and I did that for about 10 years and came out with some boats that I ended up patenting. The Sea Eagle Fold Cat, it's a fishing boat that rolls up that I have a patent on. Our Sea Eagle Razor Light is another kind of kayak, and our Fast Track is another kind of kayak that have special, unique features to make them track better, paddle faster, or be easier to fish with. So as time went on, I came to do more and more. I developed a kayak called the Paddle Ski, which was a unique kind of catamaran kayak. That probably was my first totally unique design. It just was a long and gradual process, but I then learned a drawing program on my iPad, a graphic drawing program, and now I produce all of the designs on a drawing program. Now I think that almost all of our boats are different and unique from any other competitive products. I've always taken a different tact when it comes to inflatable boats in competition, and that is not to ever directly compete with somebody else or to copy their designs, but to develop our own designs and fill what I consider to be holes in the market or provide features that other products don't provide.
Obviously, with stand-up paddleboarding just taking off here on the West Coast, one of your coolest designs is the stand-up paddleboard that could be specialized for fishing. Can you tell me about that design process and specifically about that model? I think it's so cool.
I believe you're speaking of our Fish Sup 126. I developed that boat because I consider it a boat almost more than a sup. Because it's pretty big. It's 12'6" and it's wide. Unlike a lot of sups, it's 40 inches wide, so it is infinitely more stable. I think it's exciting to fish from a sup, but I don't know that there's any great benefit to falling in the water. And I believe that it's probably good to be able to stand stably while you fish, especially when you're casting, especially when you're pulling in a fish. So the first thing I wanted to do was make it wide enough and stable enough. I knew something about surfing, so I liked a kind of twin fin at the rear, making it wide at the back and narrow at the bow so it could paddle straight. So that the shape was completely my choice. And then the last feature, or last two features of that particular product, was that I added a motor mount so it could take a little electric motor, which we happen to sell. And I also made it able to accommodate a swivel seat so it could actually be comfortable and somebody could turn in 360 degrees and have visibility in all directions. So basically, I put in features that nobody else had thought to put in, just because I saw that there was a need to have, more visibility, a need to be able to take a little electric motor. People don't always want to paddle, and a need to be stable and not have to worry about falling in while you're catching a fish.
So speaking of falling in, can you tell me about the quality assurance and kind of the testing process that you guys take? Do you guys have like a test lake or a test body of water that you take these out on?
First of all, we're in Port Jefferson, so we're right near, and we're on Long Island, which is an island, a big island admittedly, but we're near 4 bays, literally about a mile from where I'm sitting in our office right now. But more importantly, I live on the water, so I test these boats and frankly leave them in the water for sometimes a year or two before even introducing them. Testing them. When I developed the Razor Light kayak, I went through 14 separate prototypes, and it took 5 years to finalize the design, which ended up being exquisitely simple, but the measurements that I ended up with were basically came from long experience of what worked and what didn't work. How high to make the sides, how wide to make the cockpit, how to make it actually track well and paddle well. Those were the problems that I saw. I wanted a kayak that paddled faster than any other inflatable kayak in the world, and I think that's what we developed with that product.
New for 2021, I saw that the Sea Eagle has the Fast Cat 12. Tell me about the catamaran design and why you guys introduced the Fast Cat 12.
Inflatables have certain problems. First of all, I don't think inflatable sport boats have changed in design for about 60 years. And I feel that round tubes are very beneficial, and that's generally inflatables were made with round tubes. The introduction of drop stitch, which is a technology to make floors for inflatable boats and also stand-up paddle boards, introduced the possibility of having straight sides. And I came to the conclusion that if you could take a drop stitch and have a floor that is flat and horizontal, and 2 side pontoons that are vertical and going down into the water, you create far more inside space and you create kind of a great tracking keel system. It also provides a much more stable ride. So the idea was to have an inflatable boat that you just blow up and go. No assembly of floorboards, so something very, very simple and reasonably light as far as an inflatable boat. The Fast Cat is about 130 pounds when you put in swivel seats and everything. With the transom, it's pretty light for a 12'6" boat. It goes 14 miles an hour with a little 5 horsepower engine, so it's incredibly fuel efficient, and literally on 3 gallons of gas you can go for 4 or 5 boating journeys in a week or 2 weeks. So it makes a very flexible craft, and you get a lot of inside space, a lot of stability, and great tracking ability. That's the reason that I came up with the Fast Cat.
Sea Eagle, Panther, Martin, both of these companies obviously hugely successful in the fishing world. Can you tell me about you personally? I know you have a blog entitled "Tangled Tales of an American Family."
Tangled Tales of an American Family is a kind of avocation that's not really a vocation. It's, you could say, a hobby. I have an eclectic family with a lot of strange characters in that family, and that's really kind of where it started. I wanted to put down some history of different family members that go back, and some of those family members were sailing clipper ships across the Pacific Ocean in the 1840s, and some were in the Civil War, and some were, my grandfather was a shipbuilder in New York. He had the largest ship building plant in America, maybe in the world at the time. There was a lot of history to draw on. But it was basically a hobby.
Yeah, there's one post specifically, and you definitely touched on it with your grandpa. The post is titled "Grandpa Gets Busted." Can you tell me more about that story, just for our audience?
Well, I had a grandfather who drank too much, and he was also very, very wealthy. I guess when Prohibition came, he became a little bit upset and decided that he was going to take the situation into his own hands. He had 5 separate yachts over his lifetime. He started, I think, around 60 feet and then went to 70 and then 80, 90. And I think his last boat was 125 feet long. Anyway, that kind of boat can hold quite a bit of alcohol if you need it to, and he felt he needed it to. I happened to come across a newspaper article where I found that he had been arrested and busted for carrying 1,360 cases of whiskey.
Oh my God!
It's probably quite a bit for one man to drink, but
yeah, there's tons of stories like that on the blog. I had such a fun time going through and seeing some of those stories, and seeing the photos to go along with it are really cool.
Well, that's very very nice of you to say. I appreciate it.
A big thank you to all of our guests today, and also thank you for listening. I keep seeing the number of listeners growing and growing, and I'm definitely taking notice. So thank you for spreading the word about the podcast. I'm so excited for what we have in store. Stay tuned next week. We have a full Sierra opener discussion with Western Outdoor News contributor Ernie Cowan. The week after that, we'll be talking about the Juan Bass California Open recap. So we have so much in store. Make sure you hit subscribe on your podcast feed to get the latest episodes as soon as they come out, and I will see you next week.